One family lives in palaces worth billions, travels the world on private jets, and holds land that stretches across an entire nation. But here's the part no one talks about. Every single year, the British public funds all of it. And when they ask exactly where their money goes, the answer from the palace is always the same. The details cannot be disclosed. Not a dictatorship, not a secret society. This is modern Britain, and this system has been running for centuries. It begins with something called the Crown Estate. 15 billion pounds worth of property spread across the United Kingdom. Prime real estate in central London. Thousands of acres of countryside. And the entire seabed around England and Wales, where wind farms now generate billions every single year. Now here's where it gets interesting. Officially, the Crown Estate belongs to the state, not the royal family. But every year, a direct percentage of its profits is handed to the monarch. This payment is called the sovereign grant. And in 2023 alone, that figure reached 86 million pounds. 86 million from a single financial mechanism to a single family in a single year. Critics argue that the public never receives a full breakdown of how that money is actually spent. And when journalists push for details, the standard response has always been, "These are royal expenditures. The specifics are not disclosed." Tradition has always been more comfortable here than transparency. But the sovereign grant is just the surface. Beneath it lies something far older and far less understood. The Duchy system, the Duchy of Cornwall, valued at over 1 billion pounds, was held by King Charles when he was Prince of Wales. It now belongs to Prince William. Thousands of acres across Cornwall, prime London real estate, and private investments the public rarely hears about. For decades, income generated by the Duchy of Cornwall was reportedly exempt from standard income tax. The wealth compounded year after year, largely untouched. When this became a public controversy, Charles eventually began paying tax voluntarily. But that single word raises a question that never went away. If paying tax was always the right thing to do, why did it take decades of public pressure to make it happen? And in all those years before, how much wealth was quietly protected? Critics say we may never know the full answer. Now here's where the story takes a darker turn. In November 2019, Prince Andrew, son of Queen Elizabeth, sat down for what would become one of the most damaging television interviews in British royal history. He was there to address his association with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted financier whose private network reportedly included some of the most powerful and wealthy individuals on the planet. Andrew denied any wrongdoing, but the interview did not help him. In fact, many observers said it made things significantly worse. Then in 2022, Andrew reached a civil settlement with Virginia Giuffre, who had filed a lawsuit against him. Reports at the time suggested the settlement figure may have exceeded $12 million. And the question that followed was immediate. Where did that money come from? Investigative reports suggested that Queen Elizabeth herself may have contributed funds personally to resolve the matter quietly. with no public statement and no financial disclosure. Royal resources, according to critics, used to make a very uncomfortable situation simply disappear. In 2021, a major financial investigation revealed something that caught the world's attention. According to reports, just before Brexit took full effect, a portion of the royal family's private wealth was quietly moved into offshore investment funds. The Cayman Islands. When the story was published in The Guardian, the palace issued a brief response. The investments were entirely legal. Legal. No one disputed that. But legal or and transparent are two very different things. Critics pointed out the timing was notable. Ordinary British families were about to face significant financial changes because of Brexit. And yet, reports suggested certain royal assets had already been quietly repositioned. Just before those changes arrived, the journalists who published that investigation reportedly lost all access to royal events and briefings shortly afterward. Because in this world, asking certain questions has always carried a price. Diana once said something that very few people remember. She said, "They operate by a completely different set of rules, and they always have." She was not talking about palaces or ceremonies or crowns. She was talking about a financial world where the rules that apply to everyone else simply do not apply here, where wealth is protected by tradition, questions are deflected by protocol, and accountability has always been optional. Harry saw this world and chose to leave it. Diana saw this world and was never given that choice. The system today looks almost identical to the system that existed 50 years ago. And perhaps that is the most revealing thing of all. Not the numbers, not the offshore accounts, not the settlements, but the fact that after everything, after all the questions, all the investigations, all the public debate, nothing has fundamentally changed. If this episode made you think, subscribe to the channel, because the next episode goes even deeper into a family quietly at war with itself, where the battles never made the front page.